How inmates are secretly moved between prisons, the transfers you never hear about. The transfer that no one saw coming. At 2:13 a.m., the prison was silent. Not a door slammed. Not a voice echoed. Not even the night guards were talking. Then suddenly, every light in cell block D shut off at the exact same second. Pitch black. For 7 full seconds, the most dangerous unit in the entire prison sat in total darkness. And inside that darkness, one inmate whispered, "They're here." Before anyone could blink, a convoy of unmarked black vans rolled through the back gate. No license plates, no sirens, no warning. Only a small silver badge on the windshield that meant one thing: Federal Transfer Team. A group of officers in full gear moved fast, walking with perfect formation. No talking, no hesitation. They went straight to one single cell. The inmates nearby didn't speak. They didn't move. Because they all knew. Nighttime transfers only happen when something big is happening. The gang war, a threat on a guard, planned escape, or a high-profile inmate who needs to disappear before sunrise. Inside the cell, one man was wide awake. Already dressed, already packed. He knew this day would come. He just didn't know when. The officers didn't tell him where he was going. They didn't tell him why. They simply said, "You're being moved. Now." And in less than 40 seconds he was gone. No announcement. No paperwork for other inmates to see. No goodbyes. Just gone. This is the world of secret prison transfers. The moves you never hear about. The midnight operations the public never sees. And the hidden routes that connect America, Canada, and the UK's toughest prisons like a silent underground network. And today, you're about to see exactly how it works. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. The hidden system behind every transfer. Most people think when an inmate gets transferred, it's simple. A bus pulls up, the inmate hops in, and off they go. But in reality, transfers are one of the most secretive operations in the entire prison world. Every year, thousands of inmates are quietly moved from one prison to another across the US, the UK, and Canada. But the public almost never hears about it because the system is designed to be silent, controlled, and unpredictable. It has to be unpredictable, because if other inmates knew exactly when someone was being moved, everything could fall apart. Fights could break out. Gang leaders could send messages. Smuggled weapons could appear. Or someone could try to stop the transfer entirely. So prisons follow one golden rule. No inmate should ever know the transfer schedule, not even the one being transferred. Sometimes inmates find out 5 minutes before it happens. Sometimes they find out when guards walk into their cell at 2 a.m. like in The Hook. Sometimes they find out by waking up in a completely different prison with no memory of the ride. The first question: why move an inmate at all? There are 5 major reasons prisons secretly move inmates behind the scenes. 1. A gang conflict is brewing. If intelligence officers hear a rumor, just a whisper, that something dangerous might happen, they remove the key inmate instantly. 2. An inmate becomes too powerful. Some inmates become leaders. Not officially, but inside the walls, everyone listens to them. When that happens, they vanish overnight. 3. Escape risk. If someone is caught planning something suspicious, even slightly, they get moved to a tougher facility immediately. For safety concerns. Sometimes an inmate is in danger. A transfer becomes the only way to protect them. 5. Rebalancing population. This is the most boring reason, but also one of the most common. Too many inmates here. Not enough staff there. The solution? Move people. The secret network. Here's what most people don't know. Prisons operate like a hidden highway system. There are routes, checkpoints, and safe houses that only a tiny group of officers know about. In the US, the Bureau of Prisons uses a system called the Inmate Transportation Network. In Canada, it's the CSC Tactical Transfer Unit. In the UK, It's handled by specialist prisoner escort squads who move high-risk inmates at strange hours. But across all 3 countries, one thing is identical. Transfers operate like military missions. Everything is timed. Everything is coded. Everything is controlled. The transfer clock. How fast it happens. People think moves take days to plan. But in reality, a prison can move an inmate in under 10 minutes. Here's how it happens. Officer gets the transfer code. A simple message. Move inmate 1472, level red. Small team assembles. No loud radios. Just nods and eye contact. Hallways are cleared. Inmates are quietly locked in their cells. One officer walks to the target cell. Professional. Silent. The inmate is told without warning. Pack up. You're leaving. Within minutes, they're gone. No time for trouble. No time for rumors. No time for gangs to react. And for most inmates, that sudden change hits hard. 1 minute you're lying on your bunk. The next minute you're in a van, leaving everything you know behind. No explanation. No goodbye. No control. The prisoner's left behind. When an inmate disappears, rumors spread fast. Some say he snitched. Some say he escaped. Some say he's dead. But the truth is simple. He's probably on a road somewhere, hands cuffed, feet shackled, riding toward a place he's never seen. And that's just the beginning. Because the most dangerous part of the transfer isn't the prison they left. It's the journey in between. The journey no one ever sees. When an inmate leaves the prison gates, most people think the hardest part is over. But that's not true. Because the moment the doors close behind them, they enter the most unpredictable part of the entire transfer. Backhand index pointing right the road. The outside world looks calm, streetlights glowing, cars passing, cities sleeping. But for officers and the inmate inside that van, every second matters. Transfers can go wrong fast. And that's why the entire journey is treated like a silent battlefield. The transfer van, a moving fortress. Step inside a real prison transport van, and you'll see it's nothing like a normal vehicle. It's a cage on wheels built with steel doors, locked compartments, bullet-resistant glass, GPS units hidden under the dashboard, and sometimes a second van that follows in secret. The inmate sits in the very back, in a tight metal pod with cuffs on hands, shackles on ankles, a waist chain that connects everything together. They can barely move. They can't see the route. They don't know where they're going. They only hear the hum of the engine and the sound of their own breathing. To them, the world has vanished. All that exists is the cold metal around them and the unknown ahead. The officers, trained for anything. The officers who handle transfers are not regular guards. They're trained for the worst. Attempted breakouts, gang ambushes, escape attempts, car accidents, sudden medical emergencies, and high-risk inmates trying to overpower someone. Their training teaches them one strict rule. Backhand index pointing right, expect nothing. Prepare for everything. That's why they drive unpredictable routes, switch highways at random, avoid stopping unless absolutely necessary, never reveal their travel plans, and rotate vehicles to confuse anyone trying to track them. In some cases, especially with violent gang leaders, they switch vehicles multiple times in one night. No one knows which van the inmate is really in. Not even the other officers. The silent threats on the road. Most transfers happen quietly. But sometimes, something feels off. A car follows too closely. A stranger watches a bit too long. A driver slows down beside the van. Officers notice everything. And they react instantly. If a car starts trailing them, they change routes. If someone starts recording the van, they switch directions and call ahead. If a road looks unsafe, they take the long way, even if it adds hours. This isn't paranoia. It's protocol. Because inside the van is someone the prison system can't afford to lose. The unmarked safe zones. Across the US, UK, and Canada, there are hidden places used only for transfers, spots the public would never recognize. Old police garages, fenced-off backlots, empty sheriff stations after midnight, Little-known federal buildings. Private airfields with no signs. These are called transfer points. Here's how they work. The van pulls in. Gate closes behind them. Another vehicle is already waiting. Within 1 minute, the inmate is moved from one van to another. No stopping, no conversation, no confusion. Why is this done? To break the trail. If anyone tried to follow, they just lost the target. The most feared step, highway stops. If something goes wrong, whether engine issues or a medical emergency, the van might need to stop. That's when officers get the most tense. They never stop near crowds. They never stop near open areas. They always choose quiet, controlled places. Behind police stations, fenced yards, secure parking lots, secluded government buildings. For the inmate, it's confusing. They hear the van slow down. They hear doors slam. They hear voices outside. But they don't see anything. Those moments feel like forever, because they have no idea what's happening. The midnight flights, yes, they really happen. Some inmates, especially high-risk or high-profile ones, don't travel by van at all. They travel by plane. In the US, there's a real system called Airplane Con Air, the same air network that inspired the movie. It uses white planes, no commercial logos, no public ticketing, secret flight paths, rotating airfields. These planes move inmates between federal prisons, including supermax facilities like ADX Florence or prisons in the Northeast and the South. Canada uses its own federal transport flights through CSC. The UK uses high-risk secure escort teams with private contracted aircraft when necessary. These transfers happen at 4:40 a.m. times when airports are nearly empty. A single flight might hold gang members, organized crime figures, people who can't be in the same facility, or inmates whose safety is in danger. The public at the airport has no idea what's happening. They just see a plain white plane taxi in quietly, boat up, and disappear into the night sky. The inmate's mind during the ride. Inside the van or plane, time feels strange. Minutes feel like hours. Hours feel like days. Most inmates think about 3 things. 1. Where am I going? They're never told. Some think they're going to a higher security prison. Others think they're being moved for their own safety. 2. Why now? Was it a gang issue? Did a rumor spread? Did the officers watch them too closely? 3. What waits for me on the other side? Every prison has different rules, different inmates, different dangers. And not knowing is the scariest part. The arrival, just the beginning. After the long road or the quiet flight, the inmate finally reaches a new prison. But the arrival is not calm. It's fast, cold, precise. The gates open. A new team is already waiting. Paperwork is exchanged. Chains are checked. The inmate is taken inside without a word. To them, this is a whole new world. New enemies, new routines, new risks. And they must adapt instantly. Because in prison, slow reactions can get you in trouble. Transfers don't just move bodies. They move power. They change the balance inside prisons. And they reset the inmate's life in seconds. The prison that doesn't want you. Most people think once an inmate arrives at a new prison, everything settles down. But that's not how it works. Because here's the hidden truth. Backhand index pointing right, not every prison wants the inmate they're receiving. Some inmates arrive with reputations. Some bring gang tension. Some were moved because trouble follows them wherever they go. And when those inmates walk through a new set of gates, the entire prison feels the shift immediately. The intake tension, a dead silence. The moment the van doors open, officers switch into high alert. No one talks. No one smiles. No one makes unnecessary movements. This is called intake tension. Because the first 5 minutes determine everything. Is the inmate calm? Is he angry? Is he scared? Is he hiding something? Is someone in the yard watching him? Will his arrival cause a reaction from gangs already inside? One wrong move here can spark trouble later. So the process is cold, quick, and controlled. The walk inside, a test of strength. The inmate steps out of the van. The air feels different. The ground feels unfamiliar. The walls look higher, or older, or cleaner, depending on where they've arrived. And as they're escorted through the sally port, the secure double-gate entrance, they usually think one thing. Do they already know something about me here? Because rumors travel faster than inmates. A prison might know exactly who's coming before the van even reaches the gate. Some prisons receive messages like, high-ranking gang member incoming. Keep separate from Unit B. Do not place with rivals. Monitor closely. Possible contraband risk. So before the inmate even steps foot inside, backhand index pointing right, the prison already has a plan for them. The search, no secrets allowed. Inside intake, officers run a full search. Clothes off. Metal detectors. X-rays in some countries. Every seam of clothing checked. Every possession inspected. Not because they expect trouble, but because transfers can't carry anything from one prison to another. These items could create problems instantly. Hidden numbers, gang codes. Razor pieces. Medication. Homemade tools. Messages for rival groups. Once the inmate clears the search, the next step comes with zero warning. Backhand index pointing right classification. Classification, where your future is decided. Classification officers decide where the inmate will live, who they can be around, what jobs they can take, what programs they can join, how closely they'll be watched, how many privileges they get. This decision shapes the rest of the inmate's stay. And here's what most viewers don't know. Transfers often start at the bottom. Even if an inmate had a cellmate, a good routine, the safe unit, they lose all of it. Every new prison resets their world to zero. New prison, new number, new rules, new dangers. And not everyone welcomes new arrivals, especially gang-controlled units. The cell assignment, the moment everything changes. After classification, officers make the decision every inmate fears. Where is he going to live? There are three major possibilities. 1. General population, GP. This is the regular area, but it's far from safe. New arrivals must watch. Who looks at them? Who follows them? Who tests their strength? Who wants to know where they're from? In some prisons, GP is calm. In others, it's tense every hour. 2. Segregation, the whole. Some transfers go straight to segregation for protection, discipline, safety assessment, gang separation. But living in segregation isn't freedom. It's isolation. And transfers placed here don't know how long they'll stay. 3. Special units, high-security wings. These are used for former escape planners, gang shot callers, violent offenders, inmates with influence, inmates in danger from rivals. These units are quiet but intense. You hear less noise, but you feel more pressure. The first 24 hours, the most dangerous time. Every officer knows. If something is going to happen, it usually happens early. New inmates don't know the rules yet, don't know who runs the unit, don't know which cell blocks have history, don't know which groups stay apart, don't know what triggers conflict. So they walk carefully. They stay silent. They observe. Most inmates spend their first night awake, thinking, did I just get moved into a safer place? Or a more dangerous one? Why this prison? What did they write on my file? And the truth is, sometimes, no one tells them the real reason. The prison's reaction to the new arrival. Inside every prison, news spreads fast. New guy just came in. He's from another state. He came in chains. He got transferred overnight. Different groups react differently. Some watch quietly from a distance. Some look for information. Some test him immediately. Some want to recruit him. And some? They want to avoid him entirely. Because new arrivals change the balance. A new inmate could bring tension, alliances, old enemies, new problems. And no one knows which until days later. The real reason they moved him. Most people believe inmate transfers are just paperwork decisions. But inside the prison system, transfers are messages, warnings, sometimes even quiet punishments. Because no inmate is moved just because. There's always a reason, always a spark behind the scenes, always something the public never hears about. And for the inmate we followed in the hook, the one taken at 2:13 a.m., his transfer didn't happen by accident. It started days earlier, with a whisper, a rumor, and a mistake. The rumor that started it all. 3 days before the blackout in cell block D, officers picked up a strange piece of information. A guard overheard 2 inmates speaking in the recreation yard, talking quietly but fast. One whispered, "He's getting too close to them." The other replied, "Then they'll move him before it explodes." That short conversation set off alarms. Not because of what they said, but who they were talking about. The inmate from the hook, let's call him Marcus, wasn't just any prisoner. He had history. He had respect. He had influence. Not at the top level, but enough to make officers nervous. Because in prisons across the US, UK, and Canada, there's one rule every intelligence unit follows. Backhand index pointing right. If an inmate starts shifting the balance of power, move him. And Marcus, without even realizing it, was shifting that balance. The mistake Marcus didn't know he made. Marcus wasn't a gang leader. He wasn't violent. He wasn't trying to run anything. But he did something dangerous without meaning to. He made friends with the wrong people. In prison, you don't have to break rules to get moved. You only have to be in the wrong conversations. Here's what happened. A high-ranking gang member, quiet, observant, kept talking to Marcus. Not about crime. Not about business. Just regular things. But the officers saw something else. They saw the gang leader walk with him. They saw people listen when Marcus talked. They saw the yard shift when he appeared. They saw different groups watching him. To the officers, it looked like Marcus was gaining influence. Influence means power. Power means problems. So they made the call. Move him before something starts. Why prisons move people before trouble actually happens. This is something almost no viewer knows. Transfers aren't reactions. They're preventions. Intel officers look at patterns. Who sits with who? Who eats with who? Who works out together? Who suddenly stops talking? Who trades favors? Who gets attention from others? These small movements paint a picture. And when that picture shows even a hint of a future problem, the fastest solution is remove one piece from the board. Before anything begins. Before a fight. Before a feud. Before a gang thinks they're getting stronger. The list, the prison's most secret file. Every prison has a hidden document, updated constantly by intelligence officers. It's known as, backhand index pointing right, the movement list. It contains inmates that might get moved, inmates who influence others, inmates in danger, inmates connected to rising tensions, inmates whose names appear in suspicious notes, inmates mentioned in intercepted phone calls. Marcus had just been added to that list. Not because he did something wrong, but because someone thought he might. This is one of the harshest realities of prison life. Backhand index pointing right, you can get transferred even when you're innocent of causing problems. Because prisons don't gamble with risk. The final signal that sealed the transfer. 2 nights before the blackout, something happened that officers couldn't ignore. A message was found in a trash can in the laundry room. Just a torn piece of paper. For words. Move him before Friday. No name. No date. No signature. But that didn't matter. Because in prison, anonymous messages are never ignored. They're treated as warnings. And warnings always lead to action. Marcus never knew that note existed. He never knew officers found it. He never knew that one sentence was enough to trigger a full overnight operation. The red code activates. At 10:52 p.m. on Thursday night, the warden sent a message to the tactical unit. Red code. Transfer tonight. Red code means no inmate contact. No radio chatter. No daylight. No delays. Move fast. Move silent. Move without alerting the general population. That's why the blackout happened. That's why the lights cut off. That's why Marcus was woken up at 2:13 a.m. and taken without warning. His transfer wasn't punishment. It was prevention. It was strategy. It was survival, for him and for the stability of the prison. But why this prison? Why not? What Marcus didn't know yet, and what the officers weren't saying, is that when an inmate is moved this quickly, there's always something waiting at the next prison. Something unresolved, unexpected, or much bigger than the inmate himself. Marcus wasn't being moved away from danger. He was being moved toward something. A conflict, a secret reason, or a piece of information someone needed from him. And when he stepped onto the yard of his new prison, he would feel it immediately. The prison waiting for him. Marcus didn't know where he was. He only knew two things. The air felt colder, and the silence felt heavier. When the transport van stopped, the officers didn't speak. They simply opened the door, unshackled his feet, and told him, "Step out." He stepped onto hard pavement, smoother than the yard he came from. The walls around him were taller, newer, wires thicker, gates heavier. This wasn't a transfer to a smaller, calmer facility. This place looked like it had history. The kind that leaves scars on a prison. As Marcus took his first look around, something important clicked in his mind. Backhand index pointing right, he wasn't moved away from danger. He was moved into a different kind of danger. And the people inside this new prison already knew he was coming. The watchers on the roof. While Marcus stood at the sally port, getting checked and searched again, he felt something strange. Eyes. He looked up. On the roof, two officers in black tactical gear were standing completely still, staring down at him. They weren't there by accident. They weren't there for general security. Their presence meant one thing. Backhand index pointing right, someone like Marcus had arrived. Someone the prison wanted to watch closely. Inmates who arrive in the middle of the night usually blend into the intake process. Not this time. This time, the prison seemed prepared. Waiting. Expecting. As if Marcus's name had been passed through dozens of hands before he even stepped foot in the building. The file they already knew about. Inside intake, Marcus noticed officers flipping through a manila folder with his name on it. But something bothered him. The folder looked thicker than it should. Much thicker. Marcus wasn't a violent criminal. He wasn't a gang leader. He never caused trouble. But the way the officers stared at his file, the way they whispered quietly, the way they double-checked his photo, it felt like they were reading about a different person. Finally, one officer said softly to another, "That's him." That was the moment Marcus realized. Backhand index pointing right, this prison wasn't confused about his transfer. This prison had been waiting for him. The prison's reputation, a place with a law of its own. Marcus had heard rumors about this place before, whispered stories from inmates during rec time, passed around like ghost tales. They said this prison had one of the strictest segregation units in the state, one of the most powerful inmate hierarchies, one of the toughest lockdown procedures, one of the most feared internal gangs, a reputation for handling problems quietly. It was the kind of prison where inmates either become invisible or they become targets. And Marcus didn't know which one he would be. The first step inside, new prison, new rules. Marcus was escorted through 3 sets of gates. Gate 1. A giant steel barrier that closed behind him like the lid of a vault. Gate 2. A narrow hallway with cameras from every angle, watching him. Gate 3. A final security door leading into the main building, tall, gray, and silent. When he crossed that third gate, everything changed. The sound changed. The smell changed. The air changed. It felt heavier, denser. Like this prison held different energy than the one he left. The officers finally spoke. "Follow the yellow line. Don't talk. Don't stop." This was not a friendly place. The inmates who already knew his name. As Marcus walked down the hallway, escorted by 2 guards, he heard something strange from inside the cells. Whispers. Soft, low, and deliberate. "That's him. That's the one they moved at night. They finally brought him here." Marcus froze for half a second. How did inmates in a completely different prison know about him? Transfers are supposed to be secret, silent, unknown. Yet somehow, the inmates knew more than he did. That's when Marcus understood something terrifying. Backhand index pointing right. Someone in this prison had been expecting him for days. And the inmates already knew his arrival meant something. The unit they sent him to, a warning. Most new arrivals are placed in temporary units for evaluation. But Marcus wasn't taken there. Instead, officers led him to Unit R, a housing block with a reputation whispered through the prison system. 3 things about Unit R made every inmate nervous. 1. It housed inmates with influence, not necessarily violence. These were the quiet ones. The thinkers. The planners. The ones other inmates listened to. 2. It was always watched. Extra cameras. Extra staff. Extra restrictions. 3. People moved into Unit R for a reason, and no one moved out without one. ***. Marcus knew instantly. Backhand index pointing right. This was a placement with meaning. And meaning in prison is dangerous. The cellmate he never asked for. When they reached his new cell, Marcus expected to be alone for the night. But he wasn't. Inside the cell was another inmate, older, quiet, sitting on the lower bunk and staring straight at him. The officers didn't say a word. They opened the door, pushed Marcus inside, and closed it behind him. The older inmate spoke without looking away. "They told me you were coming." Marcus froze. He didn't even know this man. Hadn't seen him before. Didn't know anything about this prison. But this stranger, this quiet inmate, already knew he was coming. Marcus swallowed hard. "Why?" he asked. The man finally lifted his eyes. "Cold. Serious. Because they didn't move you here to hide you. They moved you here for what you know." Marcus's chest tightened. The man leaned forward. "And that means the next 48 hours will decide everything." The reason they wanted him here. The cell door had barely closed when the older inmate finally spoke again. His voice was low. Too calm for the situation. "They didn't bring you here by accident." The new arrival didn't answer. Didn't move. Didn't breathe too loudly. Every instinct told him to listen first. And talk later. The older inmate continued. "People don't get transferred into this unit unless somebody wants them watched. Or wants them close." Those words made the air feel heavier. Transfers were supposed to be random. Unexpected. Silent. But this didn't feel random. This felt planned. The file they hid from him. Earlier, during intake, the officers flipped through a thick folder. He noticed it again in his mind, thicker than a normal file, heavier than it should have been. Now the older inmate confirmed what he feared. "Your file reached this prison 4 days before you did." The new arrival blinked. 4 days? That meant the decision to move him wasn't last minute. It wasn't just a reaction to a rumor. It was part of something bigger. Something coordinated. He whispered, "Why?" The older inmate looked up slowly. "Because of what you heard in your last prison." The new arrival's stomach tightened. He didn't think he heard anything important. Not anything worth a transfer. But the older inmate shook his head. "You heard something you weren't supposed to." The information that started everything. 3 weeks earlier, during a routine day in the yard of the old prison, the new arrival walked past 2 inmates having a quiet conversation. He didn't stop. He didn't linger. He wasn't part of it. But he heard one sentence, a sentence he didn't understand at the time. A sentence the prison system took very seriously. "It's happening next month." That was it. 5 simple words. He didn't report it. He didn't respond. He didn't even think about it again. But someone else noticed him walking by. Someone who didn't want witnesses. Someone who later told others. "He heard us." And just like that, he became a problem. Not because he did anything wrong, but because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The whisper network inside prisons. Every prison has a hidden communication system. Coded letters. Indirect messages. Trash can notes. Whispered conversations in showers. Small gestures in the yard. Conversations during meal trays. Signals passed between cells. This network moves information faster than officers can track. And when a sensitive plan, secret, or rumor is spreading, anyone who overhears it becomes dangerous. Not dangerous to inmates, dangerous to the people planning things. So what do? They remove the potential problem. Quietly. Quickly. Without warning. That's what happened to him. The transfer wasn't to protect him. It wasn't to punish him. It was to bring him somewhere the system, or someone inside it, could keep him close. And keep an eye on him. The question every transferred inmate must ask. The older inmate leaned forward, his voice dropping. Do you even know which side you're on? The new arrival didn't respond. Because he didn't know there were sides. The older inmate continued. Someone wanted you gone from your old prison. And someone here wants you found. That sentence hit harder than the cold metal bed. Wanted him gone? Wanted him found? By the system? A gang? An officer? A group inside? A group outside? Nothing made sense. The older inmate sighed. There's something happening behind the scenes. Something bigger than you. Bigger than all of us. You got pulled into it without knowing. The new arrival felt his heartbeat slow. Not calmer, heavier. As reality sank in. He wasn't transferred because of what he did. He was transferred because of what he unknowingly became a part of. The prison's internal politics. Every prison has invisible power. Groups that control certain units. Alliances formed over years. Officers who share information. Inmates who act as quiet messengers. Rules that no one writes down. Decisions made long before arrival. Being dropped into this environment unprepared is dangerous. The older inmate explained. There are people in this prison who think you know something. There are others who think you need to be silenced. And a few who think you're useful. Useful. That was the word that scared him. Because usefulness in prison rarely means safety. It means being watched. Being pressured. Being pulled toward people you don't want to stand next to. The clock starts now. The older inmate stood and looked the new arrival in the eyes. Listen to me carefully. His voice was steady, serious, and low. The next 48 hours will tell you everything. Who wants you here? Who fears you? And who plans to use you? Then he said the words that ended the conversation. Whatever you heard in your old prison, someone thinks you remember it. The new arrival felt a chill run through him. Because he did remember. Not everything. Not the full meaning. Just one strange sentence. It's happening next month. He didn't know what it meant. But someone in this prison believed it meant enough to uproot him in the middle of the night. And tomorrow, he'd find out why. The prison starts to move. The next morning, everything changed. The new arrival woke up to a sound that didn't belong in most prisons. Silence. Not the usual morning noise. No yelling, no doors slamming, no shuffle of inmates going to breakfast. Unit R was awake. But no one was talking. That's when he realized. Backhand index pointing right, people were watching him. Not obviously. Not aggressively. But every time he shifted, someone glanced. Every time he took a step, someone leaned forward. Every time he breathed, someone's eyes followed. This wasn't curiosity. This was evaluation. The prison was trying to figure out what he knew, why he was here, who sent him, and whether he was a threat or an asset. No one approached him directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, they watched. Quiet. Calculating. Like a storm studying the land before it hits. The meeting in the yard. During the morning yard session, the new arrival kept his distance, just like the older inmate advised. But within minutes, two men approached from different directions. Not threatening. Not friendly. Just deliberate. One sat on the bench beside him. The other leaned on the fence behind. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't need to. They said the same sentence, one after the other. We heard you came from the other side. We heard you were there when something was said. The new arrival didn't respond. They didn't expect him to. They simply looked at each other, nodded once, and walked away. That's when everything clicked. They weren't asking for information. They were sending a message. Backhand index pointing right. We know the reason you were moved. And somehow, that single sentence he overheard weeks ago, it's happening next month, had followed him all the way here. Through transfers. Through officers. Through whispers. Through the system. Into a prison that wasn't even near his original location. What if those people were preparing, and he was now caught in the middle of it? The realization. Back in the cell that night, The older inmate spoke again. Not lecturing. Not warning. Just stating a truth. Your transfer wasn't about moving you. He paused, letting the air grow thick. It was about positioning you. Positioning. A word that meant he was placed here intentionally. Someone needed him here. This prison wasn't random. Unit R wasn't random. The inmates who approached him weren't random. And whatever was happening next month was connected to this place. The older inmate leaned back and said, transfers are the chess moves the outside world never sees. Every piece matters, even the ones that don't know they're being moved. At that moment, the new arrival understood the truth. He didn't get transferred because of trouble. He didn't get transferred because of a mistake. He didn't get transferred because of danger. He got transferred because someone, somewhere, needed him to be in this exact cell, in this exact unit, at this exact time. And that realization changed everything. The connection they didn't expect. Late that night, as the unit settled into its usual controlled stillness, something unexpected happened. A note. A tiny folded piece of paper slid under his door. No name. No signature. Just one sentence. You're not the only one who heard it. His heart stopped. Someone else, somewhere in this prison, heard the same thing he did in the yard weeks ago. Someone who wasn't supposed to. Someone who might be in danger. Or worse, someone who might be part of whatever was being planned. The older inmate woke up, saw the note, and nodded slowly. Things are already in motion. And then he said the line that tied everything together. Now you understand why transfers happen in the dark. They aren't just moving bodies, they're moving secrets. When people think of prison transfers, they imagine buses, paperwork, or simple administrative decisions. But behind the walls, inside the cells, in the shadows of the prison system, transfers are something very different. They are strategies. They are warnings. They are silent moves on an invisible board. An inmate doesn't always get moved because of danger. Sometimes they get moved because they're part of something bigger. Something the public will never hear about. Something whispered in yards and hallways. Something strong enough to make an entire prison system shift in the middle of the night. The truth is simple. Every transfer has a reason. Every reason has a story. And every story is one the world is never meant to hear. And for the inmate pulled from his cell at 2:13 a.m., the journey wasn't about escape or punishment. It was about knowledge, position, timing, and a sentence that traveled further than he ever imagined. It's happening next month. Transfers don't just move inmates. They move secrets. They move power. They move the future. And some transfers are only the beginning.